from the band Maserati. If you're not familiar with them, they have been around for 20 years. They formed in the year 2000, and just in this past April, on the 3rd, they released their first album in 5 years. So I'm so excited to talk to Matt about it. He should be joining in just a few minutes. But if you don't know me, my name is Whitney Moore, and I have done hosting and music talk for things like Metal Sucks and Sci-Fi and Nerdist, and I'm a big music fan. I'm so happy that I get to partner with Tower Records to interview dope bands and talk about collecting records, because it is one of my favorite things to do. So I'm so excited. And if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. We will be having a sort of open format conversation with Matt, and hopefully we will get to know what he's been up to, how you can support the band Maserati, and also how he's been spending his time in quarantine. I'm always excited about that because we're all wilding out over here. So let me see if Matt is ready to join us. Here he is. Hi, Jesse. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Whitney, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. Are you in your backyard right now?
No, I'm on my front porch because it seemed like it might rain, but I wanted to be outside.
And you're in Georgia, right?
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta.
Oh, wow. So is it humid over there?
We haven't hit the really treacherous humid months here yet, but we certainly will in a couple of months. So I'm here, and then two guys are in Athens, and one of us lives in Switzerland.
Oh, wow. That's all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about how you guys are keeping in contact during all this. But I am very jealous of your porch situation. Here in LA, there are not a lot of porches around, so I'm very, very jealous of your setup.
It's a Southern architecture, I suppose, or vernacular thing.
Yeah.
The porch. Yes.
So
I wanted to mention real quick. My bandmate Chris McNeil, our bass player, is a big fan of your show. You do This Week in Horror on Bloody Disgusting. Right?
No way.
Yeah. He wanted me to mention to you, I mentioned we were doing this, and he was like, "Well, tell her I'm just a huge fan." Anyway, so
wow,
he wanted me to tell you that.
So funny is we just finished shooting that. I live in a studio apartment, and it's really, really small, so we just put up a background, and my husband's sitting right there, and so we just finished shooting it. Thank you. That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
How are you holding it down? What's been keeping you busy during these crazy quarantine times?
Well, I think all four of us in the band are doing different things. I mean, one of us owns a restaurant, so that's been a challenge for him. I'm an architect in my day job, so I'm kind of lucky I have a job that kind of keeps going on.
Yeah.
And one of us owns a studio. He's kind of catching up on his solo stuff. And then one of us is sort of a Renaissance man and does like a million different things. So he's just able to sort of cover all the bases.
I gotta say, it's surprising to me to hear a band like Maserati. You guys have been around for 20 years now, and I think a lot of people who are music fans would be surprised to learn that even if you are successful touring and you sell records, you still have gigs and you still have side jobs. Do you think that that's pretty common?
Yeah, I think, I think most people I know in bands, unless you're, there are a few bands from around here that like Mastodon, for instance, who I know that's their job. I know that's what they do. Deer Hunter is another example. That's sort of their job, but we're just not. We're not really that kind of band. We all have other stuff we want to do, and others we just sort of have like 5 jobs.
That's
make
so
it work.
Cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like it can only add to your creative process having other things that you're skilled at. And you are an architect, you said. So do you find that it's sort of the same part of your brain that you're tapping into, or is it more compartmentalized?
That's a good question. When I was younger, I used to think that architecture and writing music were completely different. And now I think that the process is remarkably the same.
Really?
Yeah. Designing a building or designing a space is remarkably similar to designing a piece of music.
So, as somebody who doesn't know anything really about architecture or about writing music, would you say, because when I think about how someone designs a home, I would say, well, you got to have the bones first, you have to have the structure. Do you feel like writing a song, you have to sort of think of what it's going to be structured like first, or do you just start with like a riff, for example, and then go from there?
To me, it's about, to me, I think at least for our band, we have to think about it for a while. You know, it's like when I'm designing something, I don't start designing by drawing lines on paper. I started by just thinking about it. What do I want it to be? You know, and that's kind of the way we write songs. Is we're all like record collectors, especially Coley, who lives in Switzerland, has like 2,000 records. You know, and he will just like nerd out about some record we like, and we will take inspiration from that and sort of riff on that and say, well, okay, there's this drum beat that I like, and maybe we can make it our own and sort of abstract it somehow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I really want to talk with you about your record collection. Also, little plug. First of all, congratulations on your new album. Releasing an album during this time must be absolutely insane. And for those watching, there are a couple different ways you can get the record. I was just looking at, you can get, of course, the classic black vinyl, but also you guys have this like really cool pearlescent silver like variant of your record. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So our one of the I would say the reason why we're still a band after 20 years, a big reason is our record label, Temporary Residence. They're great. So all those like packaging ideas, usually this like sort of out there packaging ideas are usually their idea. You know, and it was just sort of they just believe in the sort of the physical thing, and so when we started when we figured out what it was going to be called and started figuring out the artwork, Jeremy from our record label was saying, well, why don't we print the entire thing on reflective paper? I'm like, okay. Yeah, and well, let's do silver pearlescent vinyl. Sure, sounds great. Let's do that. So that's really how that came about.
And it's so cool. And as a record collector, I eat that shit up. I love the variant colors. I love like the cool sleeves. Do you have any records in your collection that you can talk about that you are just like really prized possessions? I'd love to see them too if I can.
I wish Coley were on this call because he would be jumping on something right now. Let's see. Man, you're putting me on the spot. Now I have to think of something really, really amazing. Let's see. I don't know if I have any like super amazing things, but I have a French version of the Dune soundtrack.
Cool.
That's for some reason. I think I got that in Paris when me and Coley and our families were vacationing in Paris a couple of years ago. I don't know. I have about 3 copies of Aphrodite's Child 666, which is one of our favorite records of all time. And I usually just buy, it's a double LP, and actually, is it 3? I think it might be 3 LPs. I like to keep a couple because I give them as gifts for people who don't know that band or know that record. So
that's awesome. That's always a great and welcome thing to give someone, is like a favorite record. I love that. And I'm sure the way these things go is usually you'll think of some record that you want to share with me like 20 minutes from now. You're like, oh yeah, I have this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the record. And I mean, I have to say, I love the band, and it makes me feel like I'm in Tron. It makes me feel like I'm living my sci-fi fantasies. And you touched a little bit on Dune. Are you going to see the new Dune movie?
I'm like obsessively following what's happening with the new Dune movie, as I think all 4 of us are like obsessively texting each other anytime some bunch of photos come out or some news comes out about that film.
That's great. So you guys are all sci-fi fans?
Big time, yeah.
So on I think it was on your Spotify page for this new album, Enter the Mirror, which I love, by the way. It's so great, and it makes me feel like, again, like I'm in a video game, and it's so fun. On your Spotify page, it says let's see. Um, it says that it's about self-reflection and loss of control, which I thought was a really interesting detail to put in an album's description. Can you expand on that?
Sure. Well, I think historically we've been mostly an instrumental band. We have sort of dappled in some sort of vocals on the last couple of records. I don't know if you're into politics or into being frustrated by politics or just frustrated by politics, there's a lot to write about.
Yeah.
I think all of us in our band are politically aligned. And no offense to those who aren't politically aligned with us, that's your prerogative. But yeah, there's a lot to sort of write about and think about and be frustrated about. And so I think a lot of that has to do with just inevitably having to see what's on the news every day. And, and that was even before the pandemic. So, now it's sort of like even heavier. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like the loss of control thing is, I look at the newspaper or the virtual newspaper or whatever, and I think we all just feel like we don't have control over anything,
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting to hear you say that because it feels like that fits so well into the framework of science fiction because so much of sci-fi is dystopian. So much of it is about sort of, oh, are you there? I think I lost you for a moment. Okay, I see you.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
good.
I feel like it's really interesting to hear you say that because those kinds of things go hand in hand. I mean, to me, sci-fi is always like shit's a little messed up. So
Yeah,
um,
right.
I love that that's the attitude that you have approaching this album. Do you find that that's because you rarely use vocals, you sometimes do. Do you find that that's like a way that you guys kind of exercise that frustration, or does it enhance
Sure.
it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, we um, we just never wanted to make this. We've always wanted to make every record be totally different than um, the last. Coley and I did this interview last week with this German magazine, and we were talking about this and how there's something to be said for bands that make the same record over and over again. Actually like some bands like that, like Dinosaur Jr., for instance, kind of makes the same record over and over again. Kind of love that you know what you're getting.
Hmm.
We're kind of, at least we think of ourselves as sort of the opposite of that. Okay, yeah, we've done that, and now we're going to do this next thing. And I think a lot of that is just inspired by our former bandmate Jerry, who passed away 10 years ago. But that was sort of a thing that really rubbed off on us. Yeah,
Well, that certainly keeps with the tradition of science fiction too. I feel like I'm that's all I'm talking about right now, but it really that's the vibe that I've been put in listening to your music, and experimentation is a huge part of that. And that's even though you kind of see consistent themes throughout the years, it's always about innovating, and something that's certainly true on your album. Can you guys talk a little bit about what is different about Enter the Mirror?
sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I would say there's a bunch of songs on there where um, a little bit of self-criticism here is like we use delay pedals, right? We use a lot of, we use delay guitars. I mean, there are certain songs, and I hope that we don't use that as a crutch, but there are certain songs on this record that don't have any, doesn't have any of that on there. It's just like a straight up rock riff, which is fun.
Can you explain that to me? Because I am someone who doesn't play music. I wish I could. Maybe one day. I'm never going to say never. My dude is a huge fan of collecting pedals, and he has also mentioned this about how people kind of critique the use of delay pedals. Why is that?
Well, I think it's if you're somebody who plays guitar, it's a way to make your guitar sound immediately better, usually, even if you can't really play. more spacey, I guess. I also think it's sort of aligned with sort of you might call it sort of post-rock genre. A lot of those types of bands use that type of effect. I think we cut our teeth sort of in that sort of club. I don't know. I probably didn't answer your question very well, but that's
That's all right.
that's basically what it is.
Delays are never enough. I think that artists are always really big. They're really into criticizing themselves, so I think that it's good to hear the feedback that like we love how it sounds, and maybe if something is easy, it doesn't mean that it's bad,
Right.
So another departure from the past, I believe, with this new album is you had John Congleton produce it, and he's been producing amazing records for years. What was that process working with him like?
Well, he mixed it, and in that way, he had a very heavy hand in producing it. But I mean, we spent 4 years writing the record, and recorded. Our drummer Mike Albanese was the engineer of the record, and we engineered in his studio. And I think at the end we were too close to it, and we just needed objective opinion on the mix, and we love his stuff. Honestly, when we started talking about, we knew we wanted somebody to mix it. When we started talking about who, we didn't think he'd be available, but he did the whole thing, in like 4 or 5 days.
Wow, that's amazing.
So and we were blown away. Yeah, and then it was sort of done, and I couldn't believe that we all sort of agreed on it. It was like, so what was the process like? Actually none of us actually spoke with him or saw him. So we just sent it, and he mixed it in LA in I think maybe in progress studio. I think he's maybe building a studio in LA.
That's so cool. So you guys were just like, here's our work, mix it together, and I assume you were happy with the outcome. That's awesome.
Extremely, yeah.
That's so cool.
I don't know. I think that you get to a point where you're too close to something, and you're gonna if 4 guys are trying to mix it, it's gonna take you a year to mix it, and you're gonna end up arguing with each other about the dumbest stuff. It's better to just give it to somebody else who you trust and you respect. And I think we've done that a few times, but this particular time it worked out pretty well.
Matt, I want to talk a little bit about you now, because I feel like we connect on a lot of nerdy fandom stuff, and so it seems like so do your bandmates, big comic book fans, sci-fi fans. What is something that's been keeping you entertained during this quarantine? What do you usually like to fill your time up with?
You're gonna make me not look very cool here. So I'm also, 2 of us are parents, so I'm hanging with my 7-year-old, which, by the way, if he heard you say that the album reminded you of being in Tron, that would probably make him happy, because he's a really big Tron fan. But no, to answer your question, Chris and Mike, our drummer and bass player, have been writing quite a bit of music. So I know that they've been writing a lot of like solo music stuff. I haven't been doing as much of that. I've been gardening.
Cool. See,
yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I mean, I was gonna say like what video games, what comic books, because that's where my head is at. My hat's off to anybody who can be productive, including, taking things and putting them in the ground and making things grow. I would say that's very productive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's my way of getting outside, I guess. That's what I've been doing. Reading and gardening and parenting. Yeah.
I think that third thing probably takes
and cooking. A lot of time. Cooking. Sure. Lots of cooking.
Oh yeah, what do you cook?
Anything with curry in it.
I just had curry last night.
Yeah.
Great. It's a great anytime you can make a big pot of it, delicious. You know what is good in curry? Mango. Try it sometime.
It is. I've done it. Yes. But yeah,
This is getting into
you know,
like our cooking show that
yeah,
Tower will sponsor later.
yeah, yeah.
I want to
So
say,
could I ask a question too
of course.
about I'm seeing a lot of comments on here about Tower